Good afternoon and welcome, Essex County College family. This is the Virtual Cafe powered by Student Life and Activities. Today's episode, number 38, is Leadership 101. So we have the best expert discussion fire starter in the business, the Director of Student Life and Activities, Mr. Jamil Graham. Mr. Graham, let us know what we're doing with leadership. Tell us how you feel about it.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, thank you everybody for joining us for our Leadership 101 Virtual Cafe here on August 19th. As always, I expect this to be an open discussion of sorts, coming together, teaching each other. But I did have a few questions I wanted to pose in regards to Leadership 101. And when we put this on the calendar, a lot of thoughts came to mind. And for anybody that attended some of the previous virtual cafes, we wanted to really start on a developmental level because everything stems from the foundation that you set. So in regards to Leadership 101, I wanted to focus on some aspects of the development of ourselves as leaders. And as such, I did want to pose some open questions. One question that I did want to pose was, why should I grow as a leader? And I want that to be something that we think about for a few seconds. Just ask yourself, why should I grow as a leader?
I'll take the first hit at it. I think growing as a leader, it has to do with self-worth. You have to sit here and see yourself as a leader first. It has to do with self-esteem, time management, but most importantly, anyone can tell you that you're a leader, but you have to believe it within yourself. So sitting here and saying that I'm a leader, but you rather not taking initiative, and not only to problems, but not taking initiative in life in general, student life, college life, and your own life. So with that being said, I think that in order for you to see yourself as a leader and be able to grow as a leader, you have to walk as a leader, talk as a leader, explain yourself as a leader. So that way, when you walk into a room and you're having a conversation with someone, you're memorable. Remember, you only get one chance to have a first impression. And if someone sees you and says, I remember you, but I really don't remember, that's not leadership quality. You have to walk into the room, own it, be able to have a conversation, and be able to uphold your own opinion, even if other people may not always agree with how you feel.
Some very, very good points. So when we think about why we should grow as leaders, one aspect that I ran across, when I dig into a topic, I really like to do research. I like to see other people's perspectives and things like that. And I found something, and it was based on the actual book, Leadership 101 by John C. Maxwell. And within it, it displayed the concept of leadership ability is the lid that determines a person's level of effectiveness. Your leadership ability, for better or for worse, always determines your effectiveness and the potential impact of your success in life. Now that's kind of deep, right? So within it, I found a couple of illustrations that I wanted to share. So now when we talk about growing as a leader and leadership ability being the lid, if you look at this diagram, on the lower side, we have success, dedication, right? Now that can always be looked at as our intent. We may be dedicated to our success, but it's the leadership ability that we develop which actually raises the ceiling for our success. All right. And then when we talk about our leadership ability, those are some of the things that you mentioned, right, Jessica? When you
Yes.
talked about your self-worth, your self-esteem, developing those characteristics. And I want to add one that I would like for us to touch on today, which is going to be self-discipline. So here on the one hand, we have success without leadership. And then what I found, they went on to say, to reach the highest level of effectiveness, you need to raise the lid of leadership ability. So if we look at this diagram, even if our success dedication is on 10, right, we're completely dedicated. Unless we continue to develop ourselves and mature, so to speak, as leaders, then we'll always be stuck at that plateau. When we do undergo that self-development and our leadership ability increases, so does our effectiveness. Does anybody have anything they want to add in regards to that?
I think it's about comfortability. I think people need to learn how to get out the box and do things that may not be within their core. See, people get used to doing certain things. I mean, especially now with COVID, we've gotten into a routine, you know, with being at home and doing things from home, and everything's from home. You order everything online. You're scared to go to the supermarket, but at the end of the day, you got to get out there and get out of that box. So as you were saying, Mr. Graham, you know, even if it is at 10, get out that 10 zone. Take the extra level, take the extra necessity to be able to say, okay, I'm going to do something that I may not be comfortable with doing. See, I can public speak, but for me, recording myself, and this was why I was very nervous on a video, it's something that I'm not comfortable with, but I did it. So people sometimes would rather say, I'd rather not do that because I have to do this. Or I'd rather not express how I feel because maybe someone may not agree with my opinion. Get out there and get out that box. And I feel like if people did more of getting out of that box, out of that comfortability level, then we would have more leaders out here and people that would say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this chance and say, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And if I fail and I fall, you know what, all I can say is that I tried.
And that kind of leads me to the next question.
Hi.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm good.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay, sure.
So we're posing a series of questions, and they all revolve around the development of ourselves as leaders. So far we focused on why should I grow? And then the next question is, how can I grow as a leader? And Jessica touched on some of those things. To develop growth, we have to, in a sense, step outside of our box. So we know that as we grow and develop, leadership doesn't develop in a day, right? It's a daily process. And stepping outside of that box allows us to learn new things and expose ourselves. So in a sense, it's all about that perseverance. So what matters most is not what we do in a moment, is what we do day by day consistently over the long haul. So one thing that I wanted to touch on when Jessica was talking about the different difficulties and things that we go through in life, and that's a part of our growth as a leader, especially with these extremely difficult situations. It's best to still do the most we can to learn from the experience. So when you look at difficulties, one thing that came to my mind when she started mentioning all of this is that difficulties can be thought of as irritations, right? Or irritants. And then when you look at irritants, you can equate those to pearls. If you ever heard the old saying, right? Everybody loves pearls, and pearls are so pretty. but it comes from an irritant that forms in the oyster or the clam. All right. So even through a parasite causing an irritation, beauty can come from it. And that's what we have to do through difficult situations. And day by day, we have to work to grow. We have to commit to grow. And that requires self-discipline. It requires the willingness to learn day in and day out. And sometimes that also requires not being critical of the source of information, but the information that you receive and the ability to verify it and utilize it to benefit yourself. But I'm gonna open it up for anybody else who wants to share anything along those lines, especially in regards to how can someone grow as a leader.
I'll tell you all a little bit about my experience. I first started working at Essex County College in 2009, so about 11 years ago. And I was typically the drummer, and I'm a drummer in real life, but what I mean is typically was like a backseat rider. You know, I wouldn't be so much, I wouldn't be so eager to step into a leadership role. I kind of, there's the guy who would sit in the back of the bus or follow somebody else's lead or wait for someone else to do it first before I would take a stab at something. And probably about 10 years ago, one of my coworkers suggested this book to me, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I keep it in my desk here at work. I actually didn't plan to take this out today. I just remembered that it was in my desk. And what I learned in that book was to not care so much about what other people think or what kind of preconceived ideas they might have, because when you do, it really limits, you know, your self-esteem and even how you view your self-worth about, you know, oh, no one's going to care what I think. No one's going to care what I do. So a lot of takeaways that I had from reading that book were just be yourself. And if you're successful with even little endeavors, that's leadership. That will, other people will follow you. They will trust what you have to say based off your experience once they see you do it first. So if you're successful with things, you automatically become a leader to other people without even realizing it. And that's when I started to notice. I would start to take on little tasks around the West Essex campus and just do it how I would do it. Be my goofy self, make crazy posters, and do things kind of my way and not follow the way that other folks might have been doing it around the college or whatnot. And what I started to notice was my designs were being copied by other people. Ideas that I had were being replicated in other departments. And I look at that, and some people might say, you know, hey, you're ripping me off. And I look at that and I say, I influenced some people. I was a leader and I didn't even know it. I just by being myself, just by letting it out. And it's scary to do that. It's scary to really try to be yourself, especially at school or in your workplace. But you'll be surprised at some of the results that you find that you, Dr. Spillman always says, you miss all the shots you don't take. That's the kind of applies to me here. You know, I wasn't taking shots. But once I finally did taking some shots, I was scoring 3-pointers and I didn't even really know it. And I was able to measure it by how many other people were looking at what I did, was what I thought was just being like my goofy self. And I realized that I was slowly becoming a leader in that way, and that I could achieve things by going outside the box, by outside the bun, I like to say. And it really has an impact on folks around you, younger and older. You know, I've been influenced by a lot of folks that are younger than me. I'm influenced, you know, by students frequently, and I see ideas that younger folks have that are better than mine, and I try to implement. I say to myself, well, what are they doing? This person is now leading me. How can I take some of their ideas, combine them with my own, and come up with something entirely original, you know, by using that influence from folks? And some of the best ideas that we've done throughout the years here are collaborative efforts. And so it's being a leader is knowing when to step back sometimes and watch other folks, but it's also knowing when to just drop every ball and chain that you have attached to you. You know, drop your ego, drop any low self-esteem that you may have. Just close your eyes, do what you want to do, and go for it. And then watch how many people around you are like, hey, I like that. That was a good idea. Or, hey, I got ideas like that too. I guess I got to drop everything and just let it go and don't worry so much about being judged, because everybody's going to judge you no matter what. You know, you watch the TV, you'll see everybody's constantly getting judged. So don't worry about that. You're going to be judged on every single thing you do. But if you don't care about it so much and you just care about the goal, care about your action plan, and care about moving forward, endless possibilities. Mr. Graham?
That was very deep, Joe. And as you all get to know Mr. Ott, that really says a lot about his character. There were a lot of things that he mentioned there that were extremely key. Your self-confidence, right? You have to believe in yourself. There will always be naysayers, right? But there will always be a lot more if you really care about what people think, right? And some of it may be misperceived. But day by day, and as Mr. Ott said, task by task, right? And this is something that I can tell you that I've witnessed in Mr. Ott, is that task by task, I've seen him, you know, take small things and create, you know, very, very big things. One of them is this virtual cafe as a living example to what it has blossomed to as a platform for us to come together and share like ideas. And then Mr. Ott spoke about influence, and I was wondering if we were going to get there. And it's really funny that you have that book, because I ran across a quote, and it said, "Did you know that each of us influences at least 10,000 other people during our lifetime? So the question is not whether you influence someone, but how will you use your influence?" And then that's a very deep statement, right? And some people can look at it as somebody's copying you, right? But it really is, you know, what do they say? Imitation is the highest form of flattery. You know, that means that you have touched someone in some way, but it is for better or for worse, right? So we want to make sure that we're touching people in positive ways, and that comes through positive self-development, self-discipline, living out your values, right? And just staying grounded. And one of those ways is picking up some of these great books. And I actually have that book as well, but I haven't read it yet. But there are a lot of great reads out there that will help you, you know. And it's funny, even going through it as a student, one thing that I used to use to pick me up when I used to notice my study habits getting down is I would pick up a good read, whether it was self-development, whether it was a novel by my favorite author, right? Something to stimulate growth, right? And then you get so into it, and you know how when you're really into something you're really excited about, and then you get to translate that back to your academics. But of course, the floor is open for anybody else who would want to add to those points. Growing as a leader, self-discipline, self-confidence, right? These are things that are really at the core of leadership.
I think going back to what Mr. Ott said, especially with the self-esteem thing, I think people really don't know how to get out of that box. Maybe they want to, but maybe they don't know how to because of the influences around them. And leadership skills it's a blessing and a curse, because you can be a person that will always want to take the forefront and say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Okay. But then there are some people that, like Mr. Ah has said, who create and say, I'll show it, you know, who have the leadership skills to say, okay, I'm going to create this, and then realize, oh, I'm being copied. It is a form of flattery. But I think at the end of the day, when it comes to leadership, you have to I go back to the self-esteem. You have to believe in yourself. You have to wake up every day and let yourself know that your self-worth is more than your worth. Because people don't find that self-worth as, oh, I'm worth anything, or maybe my ideas aren't good enough to be heard, or and this is something that I had struggled with for a really long time, especially when I was in high school, and as I'm speaking, is anyone actually listening to me? And not losing the crowd, not losing my peers' attention into what I'm trying to say to them. And those leadership skills are built over time, because when I actually won for president as of the student council of my class, I was shocked because I had just entered the school. And I said, let me throw my hat in. Let me see what could happen. You know, I was new to the school. Nobody knew who I was. Everyone knew I was the new girl. Lo and behold, I'm sitting in the middle of class one day and they're announcing the winners. And when they finally get to presidency, my name pops up. And I'm sitting in class like, did all these people just vote for me? Were they actually listening to what I was saying? Because it's hard to keep a person's attention, especially for those people who may not have the social skills that you have. So being able to keep people's attention, being able to get your message across so that people understand what it is that you're trying to say and not lose their attention. But most importantly, I feel like if you show up as a leader, you present yourself as a leader, you know, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So you walk into that room, even if you may feel that you're going to fall flat on your face. I've always come with the effect of, I'm going to walk in, and I'm going to walk in with pride, get my point across. And if I reach one person that understands where I'm coming from and realizes, you know what, if she did it, I can do it, then that's all I need. So imagine, Mr. Graham, you said we reached 10,000 people in our lifetime. And those of us that haven't even tried are just really trying to reach one.
And it's funny that you use that last phrase, because one thing that came to mind reflecting on what you were saying and what Mr. Ott said, and especially the title of that book, is that we have to, when you see the effect that you have on others, especially in a positive way, then in a sense, we have to become more intentional with our influence. And, you know, that means that, for instance, if you've done something and somebody really likes it, then do what you can to not only develop yourself in it, but to develop them as well. Mm-hmm. To be inclusive, right? If you know that something is right and it's what you're pushing for, then you just have to be intentional with your influence. If you're really trying to touch the world, you know, in a beautiful way, then you have to be intentional with how you move along that objective, task by task, right? So even with people who you serve, right? I don't want to use the term followers, because in a sense, as a leader, you have to follow the needs of the people. Is that you want to be intentional with how you guide whatever organization it is, with whatever goal it is that.
No, absolutely. You know, you have to sit here and it's about presentation. You know, everything comes, you know, whenever you give a gift, you always make sure it comes in a nice, pretty box. You got the nice, pretty bow on it. And then you open it up and it's a surprise. You don't really know what's in the box because you're fascinated by what's on the outside. And I think when it comes to leadership skills, a lot of people can talk the talk, but can they actually follow through with what they're saying? You're giving them the gift of saying, here, look what I can do. But then when it comes down to the nitty gritty, are you being 100%? And me, I mean, like I said, I'm with some of the younger students that are on campus. As a student, I feel like I'm old school. I speak from the heart. I make sure that my intentions are always good. I will always make sure that I say something to someone where I do not hurt their feelings. And if I did, I'll apologize for it. But again, I like to make sure that everyone sits here and understands where I'm coming from, because my intentions are always good. But like I said, sometimes that box can be deceiving, and that box can sit here and say, look how pretty I am. But when you open it up, It's definitely not what you expect. So people have to show themselves from the inside out. The qualities that you have within, the social skills you have from within, even if it's not comfortable. Like I said in the beginning, you have to get outside that box. You have to get outside of that comfort zone, so that way you can really show the people who you are.
Thank you for that, Jessica. Hello, by the way, I'm Pete. I'm very intrigued by what I've heard so far. What Mr. Graham was saying about books, Joe was saying what you were saying, Jessica, all parallels. I recently read a book by this gentleman by the name of David Goggins, ex-Navy SEAL. He's a motivational speaker. He's an ex-Army Ranger. Used to hold the pull-up record. He does mega marathons or ultra marathons and all that stuff. And he had a number of quotes in it that have resonated with me. Basically talking about leadership. And one of them is a true leader stays exhausted. They abhor arrogance, and they never look down on their weakest link. And they fight for the people that they lead, and they lead by example. And he goes on to say it's about wanting it like there's no tomorrow, because there might not be. And it's about thinking of everybody else before yourself and your actions, and developing your own code of ethics. By doing that, it'll set you apart from all the others. And one of those ethics is to drive to turn like every negative in our lives into a positive. To me, and I'm just paraphrasing here before I go on and continue, I've had a lot of negatives in my life, and I don't dwell on it. I view that as a learning experience of either how not to do it again, or what did I do to put myself in that situation that turned it negative that I can learn from and then turn it into a positive. There's always a silver lining. And then, excuse the expletive, after you turn the negative into a positive, he says, and when the S starts flying, you got to be prepared to lead from the front.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you cannot rally your people behind you and then expect them to go in front of you. You have to be willing to lead from the front. And then, like, you have to have your own uncommon standards to live up to. If I'm telling you, like you said, like I can talk the talk, Jessica, but if I'm not able to put that into action and walk the walk, what good is it? Nobody's going to follow my example if I'm telling you how to do something, but I'm not doing it myself. And the last thing he said, and I try to keep this every day because I forget who said it, sometimes you can come across as arrogant because it's misperceived in the way you may speak or something. Is he said, just know that your supposed superiority is a figment of your own ego. A true leader should know, in my humble opinion, that we're not better than anybody else. I mean, we're equal to everybody. A leader wants to, my definition of a leader is helping somebody surpass me. And if I can do that, that's great. That's all I got.
Pete, let me tell you, I really hope that you continue to interact with your peers. You really just drop some heavy stuff on everybody. And I wanted to double back and ask you, what was the name of the ex-Navy SEAL, the author?
His name is David Goggins. He's a motivational speaker. He put out a book. Let me Google it real quick to see what the name of it is. It was given to me by a counselor that I'm friends with, a gentleman that is how am I going to put this? A clinical social worker. And he believed that it was a book that everybody should read that is, going through a struggle. I'm an open book. I'm a person who has, it's called Can't Hurt Me. I'm a person who has struggled in life with the battle with the disease of addiction. So he's giving me this to motivate me to say, hey, listen, everything you've been through in life, don't dwell on it. Use it as a stepping stone to greater things. Yeah, the book is called Can't Hurt Me. I read it in less than a day. As you said, like, I get lost in when I read. I put this up there with Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's one of the greatest books I've ever read. not the new modified versions. I'm talking about the original
The
one.
original.
Napoleon Hill in the 30s. That was, the Carnegie philosophy of success, and the power of auto suggestion, teaching your subconscious mind to actually realize things eventually in the conscious mind. But yeah, I highly recommend it. It's David Goggins. The guy's a beast. He ran a 100-mile run after working out the day before by bringing a box of Ritz crackers and 2 cases of Myoplex, and never trained for it. Proving that if you put your mind to something, you can accomplish it. All you have to have is a will for it, and be ready to endure pain, whether it's physical, mental, psychological, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
There's really no limit to what we can accomplish, and if we can instill that in others, we did our job.
Yeah, and when you speak about will, that's why I mentioned earlier self-discipline, and you're really bringing me back to that, because when you mentioned that book, it reminded me of one that I had read, and it was called "Make Your Bed," right? Or "Always Make Your Bed," and it's by Admiral William H. McRaven. And that's another book that is kind of like a one-day read, but he was teaching through some of the experiences he went through the military, and one premise that he had was even just the simple task of getting up every day and making your bed. That's one thing that you can say that you have accomplished successfully for the day. So it's just as easy to start off a successful day by getting up and making your bed. And you touched on a lot of things, and when you talk about your experiences, yeah, you don't want to dwell on them, but it really does give you the ability to lead with them and through them, and the knowledge and insight that you gained from them, especially in times like this. Some of our past experiences, even if they weren't the best, have prepared us for everything that's meant to come. So that was an excellent conversation there, Pete.
In an earlier episode, Mr. Graham had brought up how his daughter was asking him, even though we're learning from home, it's okay if I get dressed, and he said sure, and that inspired him to get dressed. Right? I have a similar example of that. Like Mr. Graham just said, make your bed. So that's something I have horrible OCD. I flip light switches. I always used to make my bed all the time, right? Everything's got to be in alphabetical order. All of my sweatshirts are in alphabetical order by the band that's on them, right? I'm a nerd with that stuff. So at the beginning of quarantine, when we first started, working from home, I really wasn't making the bed anymore, like literally and physically was not making the bed. And a couple months ago, maybe like in May, at the beginning of May, I just one day I was craving that old routine, that old normalcy, and I started making the bed like very shortly after I got up, like almost before I took a shower. Get up, make the bed, take a shower, and even though I wasn't going anywhere, I was just going in another part of the house to sit on the computer. It really put me in a different mood and mode, really, and it kind of motivated me and lifted me to begin fresher and to be a little bit. It resulted in more productivity, but it's like having a piece of cake without some icing on it. You expect a little bit of icing. You got to make sure a little bit is on there. You don't have to overdo it. But I was missing that icing on the cake every day, so I would be working and getting plenty done, but it didn't feel the same as when I would used to leave the house and come here and see students and things like that. As you can see now, we're back in the office, and our main campus and the West Essex campus are both open again, for service. So the routine is changing again. It is, it's reverting back to an old way, which is good because we know this way. But yeah, it's definitely important to literally and physically make the bed. That's a mental, metaphor as well. You want to make your bed physically, but you also want to make your brain for the day. You want to be prepared. You want to be that leader, to inspire others. It's hard to do that when you're sidetracked, when you got a lot of stuff on your mind, when you got a lot of stuff that you need to let go. Pete was saying that he has a lot of, he had a lot of negativity and things like that in his life that he's learned to let go. And I'm in the same boat as that. I used to dwell on things and let them invade my brain. And, years ago, there'd be times where, I'd stare out the window for a little bit, throughout the day to clear my head and whatnot. So don't forget to make the bed in real life and in your head. Mr. Graham.
Excellent point, Joe. And as that does bring us towards a close for today, I did want to ask everybody, because Pete kind of he influenced a thought in my mind, and I just wanted to ask you all, what if we started a student leadership book loaner program? I mean, we have, a little bit in student life, but a lot of those titles that some of those titles that Pete had mentioned, the Think and Grow Rich, the original version, those are things that I actually have. And then we can start to build like a leadership library of sorts. We can put it in the Dasher, and the students can just come in and they can just sign out. If anybody wants to leave anything for other students to borrow, we can catalog it and really, really get this ball rolling. And that's another way of sharing what you learn. There's an old guy, man, I'll never forget him, and he always said, I don't know how many times, God puts books and people in your life for a reason. So that's why I'm a big sharer of books. When I read something good, I like to talk about it. I like to let people borrow it. So I think that's something good, and maybe we can have this up and running. If I can get some help with cataloging some titles, we could probably have this for the beginning of the fall semester, so that, while certain resources are available to students, that can be one thing that can be available for students that are interested, is to say, okay, on these days, I can pop in, make an appointment, whatever, see what's on, and we could all, actually put in reservations, right? We can share the list electronically. All you really have to do is pick it up if it's available, right? Same way the library does. Just be right at, Essex County College.
That's a great idea. I can think of another couple of good ones, like As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Your stereotypical books that get you in touch with just the thought process of how to make you a better individual. There's many of I've read like I don't know if you want to do like The Alchemist or Eckhart Tolle's New Earth. Those are different versions, but there's so many books that are along such a wide variety of things that help people get in better tune with themselves, that can be better leaders. And I have no problem if anybody wants to come up with some type of list. I have a number of books that I can eventually get to and contribute to the little kitty, for lack of a better term, for people to grab. I was willing to do that too.
So again, I thank everybody for joining us. Please make sure you let us know what other topics we can cover. I really want this leadership conversation to be an ongoing discussion. I mean, it's a life effort, so it should be a lifelong discussion. And then also make sure you can email any suggestions to SLAO@essex.edu. You can also email any book suggestions, and then anything else you can think of. And then also be sure to check out the YouTube, where we archive everything. And you can always even revisit our very own conversations, because sometimes you can learn more by watching things.
We want to thank you all for tuning in to the Virtual Cafe. We'd like to remind you that as of August 17th, both campuses, the main campus and the West Caldwell campus, are open for you. And we are here to assist if you need us, so do not hesitate. We will see you again on the next Virtual Cafe. Take care of yourselves and your families. We hope that you're staying safe and cool during this time. Take care.